everyone. Welcome to the Career Brand Story, a podcast that provides expert career coaching every week. I'm Jeremy Tudor, and on today's show, we are talking about building a referral network strategy. Hope you'll stick with me to the end. We have some free resources from the Career Brand Story team that we would love to give to you that are available until June 30th. So stick with us all the way to the end, and I will share with you how to gain access to all of those free great resources that we're providing. Today's guests, we have back Jeb Graff, who is a commercial photographer and creative consultant and producer of the Career Brand Story. Hello, Jeb. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks again for having me back.
I'm glad to always have you back, and thank you so much for all the hard work you're putting in to helping us produce one of the most excellent Career Brand Story podcasts. I also have a dear friend, mentor, and fabulous person all around, Paulette Bennett. She's talent acquisition strategist and recruiter expert. Known her for many years. Paulette, we're so glad to have you here today.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. Hey, Jeb.
Hey.
Again, it's really great to have Paulette join us here today. Paulette is truly my mentor within talent acquisition and recruiting, and where I started my career. She literally kind of plugged in a USB cord from her brain to my brain and dumped everything that she knew, and completely and utterly just grateful for the knowledge that she shared, the mentorship that she provided, but also the career experiences that we've gotten to share along the way. We have worked together in staffing companies and startups and large global companies. And before the show, we were just kind of reminiscing on some of the fun adventures. We'd have to have a whole separate podcast about those that are there. But Paulette, why don't you just take a moment and just share with us a little bit about how you got started in recruiting and where that's brought you to today?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in HR and recruiting for 25 to 30 years. My early career was HR. I realized that benefits administration and filling out forms and that part of HR wasn't that interesting to me, but I did find the recruiting component very interesting, which led me where I am today. And I've done that for, 20 plus years. And it's been an interesting ride. It's never a dull moment for sure in the world of talent acquisition.
Great. Well, I know I'm looking forward to having you be able to share some of your knowledge today to our listeners. And our second part of the show today, we're going to be doing recruiter questions to recruiters. And so looking forward to seeing some of your answers to some of our listeners about questions that they have as well. I want to dive in today and really talk about what it means to really build a referral network strategy. I think a lot of job seekers out here go about applying to jobs simply by applying online. And that really seems like a lottery game to me. If you're going to do that, you're up against 250 to 300 people. And it's just a game that you're playing. The more resumes you submit, then the more return on investment you can get with that. But that's a huge, I think, risky game to play. And I think there's a better way for job seekers to really strategize about how they go after the jobs that they really want. And that really comes down to a referral network strategy. I just believe it's the most powerful way for you to land your next jobs. When we look at the statistics of referrals, referrals are the leading source for the best candidates for 88% of employers. Referred candidates are a better cultural fit than those hired from other sources. Retention rates for referrals are higher in companies, and almost 2/3 of an employee workforce at a company will refer someone. And typically the company is offering some type of referral bonus program, some type of incentive. So I think the saying of that it is who you know still matters today. Is that something that you would agree with, Paulette, in your recruitment experience?
Absolutely. Year over year, referral networking is the number one source of hire at the major companies in the world. Employers want to hire people who hang out with their good people, right? because they generally have the same interests, the same, maybe not the same skill sets, but they have like people attract like people. And so their top producers are generally those who are referred by other people. So I do agree with that.
Yeah. If you look at the stats, if you apply for an employee if you apply to a job and the employee referred you to that job, you'll have a 50% chance of getting an interview, and you have a 20% chance of getting hired. But if you don't have that employee referral, you will have a 3% chance of getting the interview and only a 1.2% of actually getting hired. So I know in companies that I've worked in, I mean, pretty much it was, if this is a referral, this is someone you reach out to. And usually it was within like the first 24 hours, you need to make some type of contact with this person.
Mm-hmm. And if it's a manager who brings you the resume of somebody and says, I want to talk to this person, they'll generally get an interview with the person, hands down.
Right. So how often do you believe that you're getting referrals and really placing them within jobs?
Oh, all the time. I get referrals all the time. So I think it's safe to say 80% of the jobs
Really
that I've
high?
filled. Yeah, 80% of the jobs that I've filled in the past probably year have been referrals. Absolutely.
Wow.
It's pretty substantial,
Yeah.
especially in the engineering industry, in the oil and gas field, because all those guys know each other and they go from project to project, right? So they get that experience working with a team on a project, and then the project ends, and then they all disperse, and then another project starts. And then what happens is the project director knows people, right? The project manager knows people, and they tend to pull those people back in that they've worked with in the past.
Right. What do you think is like the most challenging thing? Like if I'm a job seeker and I'm like trying to gain a referral, like, are there important things that I, as a job seeker, need to think about when I'm trying to gain that referral in your mind? Or is it really just a simple, I know them, they work at this company,
Well, I think if you're asking me if I'm a job seeker and I'm going to go to somebody that I'm associated with, I'm not going to ask them for a job. I'm going to say, I've done some research on your company that you work for. I understand you work for XYZ company. Seems like a really good company to work for. Is there anybody there who you can introduce me to, perhaps? It's probably a good way to lead into the conversation.
Yeah. Well, so I think that most job seekers, again, kind of take job hunting and they don't really necessarily have a target in mind. And so they don't even start with like the company in mind. You go to Indeed or you go into LinkedIn and you look at the job title, and then like all these hundreds of jobs come back, and, you just start applying. Maybe geography is thought in that a little bit, but it seems most people go by job title, geographic location, and that's how they do their job search. And I think that if you reverse engineer your job search and really target the company, you're going to get exactly, it's kind of the input you put in, the output is what you're going to get, right?
That's right.
Type of thing.
I agree. The reverse engineering seems more productive to me than just blindly applying for jobs on the internet. That will be part of your strategy, putting those applications in electronically. But there are multiple things you're going to do when you create an overall strategy, which I believe is what your company helps with.
Yeah. Well, and the other piece to this is that I've had clients and I've had candidates in the past when I was recruiting who might find all these jobs online and say it's like the same company and there's multiple engineer roles or there's multiple, IT roles, and they go through and they start applying for every single one of those jobs within the company. And I know as a recruiter, when you would see that same person start popping up on every single job rec, it was like, okay, bye-bye. Like they got onto this do not call list almost. Because again, it didn't seem like the candidate, when they do that kind of thing and are just applying online, it makes you question, like, are you really reading through these job descriptions and the qualifications? And are you being strategic about what you're really wanting, in your career?
Well, I see a lack of focus and a lack of seriousness with that approach completely.
Yeah. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about what a referral network strategy actually looks like and how do you practically kind of put this together. So I always talk to people about kind of putting, a couple of lists together. The first one is that you make a running list of 7 or 10 companies that you're curious just to find out more about. Maybe you're connecting with that company because of values that they share. It may be just that you like their brand and you've really connected with their brand. But there's something about them that's like, I want to find out more. Whatever your reason, I think that targeting companies helps you discover more about them. And then as you kind of work through those companies, there may be reasons why you end up crossing them off your list. You find out maybe they don't align to your brands as much as your values as much as you thought. Maybe they don't have great work-life balance, and you can kind of discover this. Then you can cross them off your list, and you're no longer spending or wasting energy. Every time that company advertises a job, you kind of know, I'm not interested in working in that environment or for that company. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the first list. And I think that it's really important to keep that one as a running list, that you're always kind of exploring and doing discovery to figure out, as much as you can about the company. I think then the second list that you create is really a list of people in your first degree that work at those companies. So who do you know who works in the company and can be a direct referral to you, right? That might be a hiring manager. It might be an associate, but it's someone there that, you can put down that has a direct connection. And then always the question is, what if you don't know anyone who works at the targeted company? Then I think your third list that you create is, who do you know who knows someone who works at that company? And your first degree people can introduce you to those second and third connection people to help you build the referral into the company. That may be a message that connects you through LinkedIn. It might be an email message, but there's some type of contact that can help, be able to get you that referral into the company. I also think, and a lot of job seekers, I don't think this all the way through, but I actually believe in building referrals even through the interviewing process. So when I actually interviewed for the state of North Carolina, the very first time and first interview I had with the state, I did not get the job that I wanted, but I sent a follow-up email to every single person on the interview panel. And the hiring manager, when she sent a rejection notice to me, I actually emailed her back and said that, while I was disappointed, I really appreciate the opportunity in coming in. And I hope that we could establish a professional relationship and from time to time to check in. And she actually responded back and she was like, absolutely. And so about, I don't know, maybe a month later or something, another job opportunity came up within the state. And I emailed her. I actually talked to her on the phone about the role. She even called over to the HR director in that agency and really spoke highly of me. And I landed that job. So there's so many opportunities for us to continue to build that network, even if at the end of the day you get rejected for a job.
So also consider this from a different perspective, is that the company that I currently work for, I was a contractor. I was consulting when I started with this company, and I got my foot in the door. I did good work. I did internal networking with many different people, and they decided to hire me full time. So that's just a different spin on how you can get your foot in the door and then network once you get into the system and make as many connections as you can.
What do you think is, like, a lot of people get, scared of networking, or they have this fear as soon as like the word networking is mentioning, but you just talked about just even networking, even after you had the job. Mm-hmm. What does networking look like for you?
Well, networking for me is, it depends on what social situation or professional situation that I'm in. But if I talk about the things that I know, the fear tends to subside, right? So if I'm at work and in a work environment. I can talk about, recruiting or engineering or, the COVID crisis. I can talk about those things, which helps draw people in and also calms me down. And if I'm in a social situation, again, I can talk about, you don't like to say it, but you can, if you're starting out, taking small steps, you can talk about the weather, you can talk about the social situation right now with the virus and how it's impacting, what you're doing at home and things like that. So it's really talking about those topics that you're comfortable with.
Jeb likes to talk about cats.
Well, there you go.
We decided on a previous episodes that you should always hire the person who has lots of cats.
Cats, dogs.
It's a fact. It's not something to be argued with. I don't know why everybody's giggling.
Yeah. So I think the big deal for people in networking sometimes is just the fear of rejection and not realizing that that networking really is just a simple conversation, an introduction sometimes, that it's not always about, talking to this person and hoping that they see all the value that you're worth and they're going to hire you for the next job. It's just an opportunity to open a door that you may not know that you need down the road that could come. When I think back on my career, the funny thing is I've only really truly interviewed, I think, on 3 occasions of the different jobs that I had. Other times they were simply because I knew someone and they referred me into the company.
Referrals are a powerful, powerful tool in the arsenal. So it's really important to do it and try to get fairly good at it.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of work that goes into that, but again, the work is the payoff, because you're going to end up landing a job that you really love versus just, if you're going after a job that's already just been posted online, it's already been advertised, it's been posted, it's been talked about. And the real fact is that they probably have a set referral of people already on that job rec that they're considering.
Yeah, that's accurate. Fair enough.
Yeah. So it's just really an important strategy. I also think that within the referral network strategy, just a couple of places that I think people can go to from a business intelligence standpoint. Glassdoor is a great site to try to find out some information about the company. LinkedIn, again, is a great place to find out who works there. So if you actually don't know anyone at all in the company, you actually can still find someone who works in the company and potentially build, a referral strategy through LinkedIn. One of the best tips that I can give to people about LinkedIn is that when you're trying to find someone in the company who's actually a hiring manager and hiring in the company, is if you go up to the field, the search field, and you search people, if you put the company name in and then use the phrase "I'm hiring," you will end up with a slew of results of people, hiring managers who have used that phrase in their profile and have direct contact with an actual hiring manager within the company. And so it's an opportunity to, again, send them a LinkedIn message, be able to connect with them and build a referral, that maybe you don't have anybody at all. You can really start to build that relationship in there. And one of our go-to strategies when we're sending cold calling kind of emails, and Paulette, you taught me this directly, we always have a high return of rate when we use this phrasing, but the subject line is, "I'm inquiring your expertise," right? Because everybody wants to be able to talk about what they're good at and what they're an expert at. And so we leverage that in recruiting. I think it works for job seekers as well to say, "Hey, I just want to find out your expertise," or maybe someone you know. But I'm always talking about people like, get them to a place where they want to talk about something with you. And then give them simple action items. People are really busy today. And so, obviously having coffee with someone is great. But that's probably not going to be reality. And especially in a COVID-19 world, that's really probably not going to happen. Getting a phone conversation, even if it's for 15 minutes, is, another, I think, golden parachute if you can get that. But even if you can't get that, maybe just asking 1 or 2 simple questions in the message, hey, do you just mind responding back to these 2 questions? Again, kind of warms up that conversation, and allows a relationship to actually start to develop.
Interesting is I respond to more messages if they've read my profile and they relate to something in my LinkedIn profile. Oh, I see you worked at wherever doing whatever. And if they can make some connection, or I see you volunteered for the Special Olympics, or, I have a friend, or if they can make that connection, it makes it more personable to me, and it makes me want to engage more on the other side.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we talk about, especially within LinkedIn. It's all about personalized marketing. And that's not just personalized marketing and what people read on your profile, but it's also how you approach people. I think we want more authenticity from people, and we want to know the realness of people when they're connecting with us, and not just kind of just kind of a hit and run. I don't know if that's the right phrase to use or not in it, but you just don't want people just to connect with you just because that you think they can get them a job, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Good point.
So Paulette, we ask every guest here on the Career Brand Story podcast, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, the good news is that where I'm at in my career is exactly where I want to be. I'm doing international recruitment. I'm hiring lots of people. I've traveled the world, and I think that I'm at the pinnacle of my career. And I've obtained all of my goals, and there's really not any place else I want to go. So right now what I'm doing is planning on retirement, and I am planning to transfer as much of my knowledge as I can to the next generation so that they can come up through the career ladder and they can do a good job. And if I can empower them to do good work, then I feel like that's a good way to end my career.
That's great. Well, I hope you can stick around for our second part of the show today as we dive into some questions from our listeners and get a recruiter expert answer.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, it's McKay, the market growth leader here at Career Brand Story, and I have a career tip for you this week. Use a spreadsheet to track your job search progress. Keeping track of all the jobs that you've been applying for and the people that you've been reaching out to can be overwhelming at times. Things that might run through your mind are, when was the last time that I heard back from that particular person? Did I follow up with this hiring manager? I think it was a week ago that I contacted my referral. Will I annoy them if I contact them again? Use a spreadsheet to keep track of which jobs you applied to. With the job posting link, the job title, company, date applied, and maybe even put the job posting in there for reference. Keep track of your targeted referral lists. These are companies that you're targeting, people you know who work at these companies, and people you know who know people who work at these companies. Keep names, contact information, date contacted, and any notes that you need. Download our free Referral Network Strategy Worksheet, along with all of our free Career Brand Story resources at jeremytudor.com.
Brand is not just a logo, a color, or a catchphrase. It's custom. It's your language, your culture, your vibe, and so much more. So why leave your brand imagery up to whatever you can find on a stock photography website? I'm Jeb Graff, and I'd like you to consider getting in touch with me for your custom photography for your custom brand needs. I've worked with people across the United States to make photography that tells your story better and more effectively than any search on a stock site could. And I'd like to work with you too. So go to jebgraff.com/contact to leave stock behind and say hello to imagery that's as custom as your brand. That's jebgraff.com/contact. Talk to you soon.
If you've been following us on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, you might have seen this question come across about asking a recruiter a question. And so we're glad to have Paulette Bennett with us, who's a recruiter expert, to be able to be our recruiter today that we're going to put on the hot seat and ask questions.
Ooh, hope it's not too hot.
Right? So we picked out some of the best questions that came through to us through our Instagram feed this particular time. And so let's just dive into them. So Paulette, how important is LinkedIn for recruiters when considering a candidate for a job?
Well, it's super important. And what you have on your resume should match as closely as possible is what is on your LinkedIn profile so that those two things align. If you have any recommendations, you should have those very visible, and you should have your profile as public as possible. So if you are job searching, if you currently have a job and you're just marketing yourself on the side, or if you're currently actively looking for a job, it is almost 100% important that you have a good LinkedIn profile established.
Do you personally in your recruiting spend time reading like the about section on candidates?
I do not read the about section. I go
Really?
directly to their experience.
Oh, interesting. All right.
I might scan over it, but I'm more interested in their expertise, their skills, and their technical abilities, and maybe, you know, what associations they belong to, their education. But I read thousands and thousands of resumes, and so if it's a hiring manager, they may have a different view of that.
Sure.
But I'm keyword searching while I'm reading. I'm looking for very specific things.
Yeah, which totally makes sense from the recruiter standpoint. So with the about section, what we teach our clients is to deliver personalized marketing there and really communicate more of your story. That may be something different outside of your resume that can help you stand out. But I think that it's really important. So my philosophy with LinkedIn is I'm mindful about keywords, but I actually think brand speaks more. And so, you know, I think like having your skills in an endorsements section that shows your hard skill sets is really important. I think having a strong headline that might even be keyword, you know, focused is really helpful because that's a quick look for a recruiter. And then we do actually recommend, well, the work we've done into the resume under your achievements, that goes right under your experience, you know, and matches. So you're going to pick up all of those keywords and the actual experience and again, the results that someone can really bring to the table.
And just as a tip.
So second question.
Wait, just as a tip, we don't want resumes that are pages and pages long. 5-page long resume is not really what we are looking for. We'll probably stop reading at the end of page 2.
Yes. And I think the other thing too is that sometimes people put their resume on LinkedIn, which I don't recommend doing that either, because everything should just be integrated into LinkedIn. And part of that's just how LinkedIn works so that you're optimized in searching. So I know in recruiting, you and I both used LinkedIn Recruiter Seat pretty heavily. And so it's really important to make sure that your data is actually integrated into the system so that when a recruiter goes in there and searches, they're going to pull back the right information. And
we can just pull it down in PDF format.
Yeah.
Right. You can just
absolutely.
download the profile and just use that as your resume format, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually done that with candidates where I haven't even contacted them yet. And I've just downloaded that, taken it to the hiring manager and said, are you interested in this candidate?
Absolutely.
Right. And then contacted them. Yeah. So, all right. So our second question that we've got, what kind of key information, you know, should a person research on a company when preparing for an interview? And I think where they're going with this question is sometimes in an interview, one of the questions that gets asked is, well, what do you know about the company? And so I think that that this question is kind of leaning towards that is like, well, what should I know about the company? What should I be prepared to say about a particular company to show that I've done the research?
The best thing to read about a company is to go to their most recent annual report, because there's a whole lot of information in there. Their mission, their vision, how much money they're making, how much money they're losing. There is a ton of good information in there. Their charities are usually in there. So you can find those annual reports usually on their website. You can, if you just review the website, you dig, you'll usually find vision, mission, and get to the core of what the company is about, any recent accomplishments or wins for the company. Those are all important things, but the annual report would be a really good place to start.
That's really great advice, because I think a lot of people just settle maybe on a company website, but that's sometimes branded more from the space of, what a consumer might see, and maybe a little too generic. It doesn't really give you the information you want.
If you present your information to an employer and say, hey, I just read your annual report, that's incredibly impressive. Or if you go to an interview and say, hey, I read your annual report and I got, these things, I read about these things, they'll blow their socks off.
And then quote the president.
Yeah.
I did a PowerPoint slide on your annual report.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's great. All right. So one of the things that I like to do in a resume, I don't really like executive summaries because I think they're really fluffy and I just don't get right to the point. So I always get my clients to focus on a performance summary, which is typically like, what's your big career highlights, right? But so in that kind of question that kind of came out, which is more important? Is it more important to have relevant achievements or most impressive achievements?
So this is the summary at the top of the document that we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is your opening, putting your best foot forward. Your most impressive accomplishments should be anything at the top of the resume should be where you're blowing somebody's socks off and you're going to want to make them read your resume further. So your most important, impressive accomplishments should go in that spot.
So, that's what I like about the way we do the performance summary, because if you've had a 20, 25, 30-year career, and something you did back farther than 10 years ago is like really impressive, it's an opportunity to put that right at the top of the resume where everybody can see it. And so it doesn't get lost at the bottom, or it may not even be included because typically we're not going back beyond 10 years.
Exactly. I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're trying to get the reader to keep reading, right? So anything you can grab their attention with and engage them longer term to read through the whole document is to your benefit.
So next question from one of our listeners. Do you think references really matter at all that much?
I think it's a subjective topic. I'm not a big fan of references because in the field of HR governance, a lot of employers won't give references anyway. They'll verify your former employment. They'll say, yes, the individual worked here from this date to this date, and this was their job title, and they won't give you any more information.
Right.
Even if you assign a release form, it's 50-50. Probably the odds are less that we will get the information. And I think references are really subjective anyway. What I would recommend in its place is to get a letter of recommendation. Those are helpful.
Yeah, so one of the things that I did for a contract position was I took the recommendations that are on my LinkedIn profile and I actually printed them out, on another paper that I took in with the interview. So they had my resume and then they had these recommendations that, just to help me stand out, of people who were, it's the same thing. It works in marketing. People want to hear client testimonies. It's really like, it's their testimonies of your work. And that worked, I think, really well. I think for the recruiter who was recruiting for that role, she kind of made a comment, it was like, well, that's cute. And I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I think she was actually impressed with it, but I don't think she knew how to respond to it because no one had done that before. Was the whole deal. Because I did land the job. So
good. Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. So will you look, I know you mentioned earlier in the question about when we talk about LinkedIn, so you definitely will go and look at the recommendations on LinkedIn for
sure.
people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. And a next question, and I know your answer to this because I hold the same answer to this one, but this is always asked, is a cover letter important to have when applying for a job?
So another subjective question, depending on who you're asking, but for a recruitment manager who reads thousands and thousands of resumes, I'm more interested in what the resume says and less interested in what the cover letter says. Obviously, if you're sending me your information, you're interested in my company, you have some idea of what it is you want to do. And so I want to get into the details of what your background looks like. If I had to read every cover letter that I got, I wouldn't have time to read the resumes.
Yeah, I don't think that in the 16 years that I've done recruiting that I've ever read a cover letter. And y'all, Paula used to be my boss at one point. So there's job performance for you. I didn't do that part of the job.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
But I mean, you really don't have time to do that. I think one of the confusing things maybe for job seekers is that a lot of applicant tracking systems give you the option to do a cover letter. And so therefore they feel that they have to do that. But for me, being on the side of where I've been in companies where we've built out the applicant tracking system, many times that was just, a default button option that's included. And it's not something that anyone's really paying attention to.
No, I think a handwritten thank you note is impressive. If you can, because nobody does it anymore. They all send job seekers send email messages. But if you can scribble out a handwritten thank you note, that sets you apart because most people don't do it. So
around cover letters, what do you think of the idea of someone delivering to you, since we're in a digital age, delivering to you like a 90-second introduction video of themselves? Have you seen that at all? Or would that be something that you would take time to watch?
I would take time to watch it. It's not happened to me at the company that I work for. My only guidance there would be that discrimination could occur, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But the point there is also, the takeaway there is, well, if a company is going to discriminate against you,
why do you want to work there anyway?
Why do you want to work there anyway? They don't align. Right. They don't align with your goals. So,
right.
But I do think it's clever. I think, especially in maybe a marketing role, it would be pretty cool. But yes, I would find that interesting.
All right, good to know. All right, last question. How do you handle salary negotiations? Do I say my salary range upfront to a recruiter?
So there are two sides to this. I'm a recruiter and I want to know how much money you're looking for, because if you're looking for something that's out of my budget, then I don't want to move you forward in the process because I can't afford you. Then there's the job seeker side, is you don't want to, show all your cards right up front. I think there's an appropriate time to divulge what kind of compensation you're looking for. I don't think it's on a phone interview. I don't think it is on the first interview. I think when the company seems more serious, maybe on a second interview, or maybe when they call you back after a first interview and they want to schedule a second interview, I think it might be more appropriate at, let's call a stage 3, than a stage 1, a phone interview, or a stage 2, your first face-to-face interview. I think you can hold your cards close to your chest. And if they want you bad enough, they're going to wait until that stage to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of, I don't know how I want to say this, but I feel like there's a lot of recruiters out there who do that, trying to get that price up front, and not in a healthy way, and not maybe in an honest way, so that they can basically bring someone in at that price.
Again, if they're asking those types of questions and it feels like it's somewhat dishonest, then that's not a company you want to align yourself with anyway. Right. A reasonable question would be, Jeremy, can you give me a salary range so that we can make sure that we're aligned with what your expectations might be? And you're not married to that number. That number might go up or it might go down, but we just want to know that we're at least playing in the same ballpark. Because if we're not, I don't want to waste your time.
Right. So do you think that, and I know this is kind of controversial too, but do you think that companies should just go ahead and just be upfront with the salary range, even on the job posting? So then the issue is not even, it's just done.
I think it's acceptable. And that way the expectation is already laid out. And if the range is not, if the range is posted and that is what it is, even if I'm interested and I'm looking for more than that, I would still apply. It wouldn't stop me from applying.
Right. I mean, the part that I argue with this too is that I also think job seekers should really know what their market worth is.
For sure. Absolutely.
When they don't do that type of research and really don't know what they're worth, and then they go apply for jobs that are less than, it's like, well, you really should know that information ahead of time. And, not be undervaluing yourself, for the particular.
Yeah. Don't devalue yourself unless you're in a position where, you really need to work. Right. There are times, for example, if I'm a recruitment manager and I'm out of work, I might still do recruiting for a recruiter salary, but knowing well that I'm going to continue to look for a better gig for myself that fits what my compensation should be. But it doesn't mean I can't do the recruiting role. So there's an end to the means.
Right. Well, Paulette, thank you so much for taking some time to answer these questions from our listeners. It's been great having you on today's show, and I'm looking forward to you coming back again and spending some more time with us.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's been a blast. Thanks, Jeb.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us again today at the Career Brand Story podcast. I put together my top resources that we have used for thousands of clients with 100% success. You can go download what you need and follow the instructions, and I guarantee you will craft a better career brand story to help you land a new job. You can get these free resources on my website at jeremytudor.com. At the very top, you will see the banner COVID-19 Alert, free career brand story resources. Get yours here. You'll sign up and it will immediately take you to our free resources. Keep on thriving.